Terrarians have climbed the highest mountains.
4 of these bad boys. Alright, we're gonna...
Beaten immovable opponents.
Look at them all. Look at all those stingers!
Even after beating the toughest challenges.
Thank God, guys, this is getting insane.
They created even more difficult nightmares to face themselves. And in the end, thousands of hours have put this community on top. And then there's me. Yeah, so if it wasn't abundantly clear from this offhand comment I made in my last video, before we get into this challenge, full disclosure, I am not a particularly good Terraria player. I've always liked the game, and I've liked the modding experience, but I'm personally more of a Minecraft guy. I don't consider myself particularly good at Terraria, and a couple of you in the comments definitely picked up on that, to say the least. Just kidding, I love you all. Thank you for the support so much, it means a lot to me. Still, I may have exaggerated my claims slightly. Even though I am a avid Minecraft player, I did get so far as to beat the Devourer of Gods in Calamity Mode. As a matter of fact, something you'll soon find out in this challenge is I've actually played Calamity Mode a little too much for my own good. But we'll just save that little piece of foreshadowing for later. I figure a newer player like me diving into this community should start off with things pretty easy. So for this challenge, if you could even call it that, I've decided to try and beat Terraria with only summons. Usually summoners are considered the worst of all the classes. You kind of just sit back and run while your summons take care of whatever fighting there is for you. However, here's the catch. I've given myself unlimited summons to hopefully make the game so easy even a toddler should be able to beat it. But before I even stood a chance of unlocking this amazing looking noodle boy here, I had to start like any other Terraria playthrough. The first thing I did was chop down some trees. It was simple enough, but it's important to collect wood for whatever I might use it for later. At this point I began to make my way to the left of the screen. I was looking for a living tree biome, or anything else really interesting that could help me, but I didn't find much except for more trees, which I promptly chopped down. Because after all, you can't have enough wood. Then I drowned. It was very slow, and very, very painful. But since I was on classic mode, I only lost coins, which I'm not going to care about in this run. Respawning, I immediately tried my luck heading to the right. You'll notice that I'm chopping at a lot of the trees while I'm walking. This is because, from my experience, I knew there was a small chance of them dropping a Finch Staff. This would have been the first summon item I could have access to, but sadly that didn't happen. Instead, I got gangbanged by a vulture. He was coming at me, and I didn't really have any weapons to defend myself, much less this summon weapon, so I just kind of slapped him around a few times. I was doing 1 damage per hit. It was very slow. Especially when his buddy came along and promptly chased me to the literal ends of the earth before killing me. I decided I had enough of trying to survive on the surface, so I began digging a hole. I was looking for a cave or something, but there was absolutely nothing besides a darkness that could rival that within my own heart. So I basically just gave up on this world and made a new one. I did pretty much the same thing. I set my minion boost on, I explored this random cave that I found jutting out, mined some ores real quick, looted some treasure, mined, again, a lot poorer this time, and it was all going fine until this happened. That was when I realized the mod I downloaded to give me infinite minions also let me toggle light. This was incredibly useful, not just because I am lazy and don't like placing down torches, but because it helps the recording process immensely, so you guys don't just have to stare at darkness the whole time. I went mining for basic armor and weaponry until I could find a staff, of course, before I stumbled upon the desert biome, and I remembered something. One of my favorite summons back when I used to play Terraria more hardcore was called the Stormjaw Staff. It basically summoned a baby storm lion, and it was actually quite effective for the early game. So I began mining into the underground desert and died instantly. I did not even step foot in it, but I was not to be dissuaded. I made my way to the above ground desert. It was corrupted. I was immediately chased away by corrupted chimeras, which nearly killed me, and then I was attacked by a slime to add insult to injury. I went to the other section of the worlds to find the other desert and set up a little base. I checked to see what I could make, hoping for some divine inspiration, but my options were incredibly limited, so I went back underground. I poked a cactus, it exploded. I did some more mining, I poked a white thing, it also exploded into little babies. And after around 5 minutes, I actually found a living tree underground, of all places. Now this was a godsend, because living trees have a chance of having the Finch Staff in their chests. This isn't exactly the best of all summon weapons. In fact, I wouldn't even call it good. But it is a weapon I could defend myself with. And so I checked each chest after killing a bunny. The first one had nothing. I held my breath and opened the second one. Also nothing. Sure, I got some potions and a little blowpipe out of it, but I was really looking for a Stormjaw staff or better, so I went back to fighting. And I got absolutely destroyed by storm lions again. At this point, I was feeling pretty down on myself. I was nearly a half hour into this recording and had yet to even run into a single staff. I never really ran into this kind of bad luck in the past, but I didn't want to cheat and just give myself one, so I decided to crawl back to the tree and hoping that I missed something. As I went down, I noticed that there was an alternative route I could have taken, up, and I glimpsed it, a third chest. This entire run was riding on this one chest, and it was there. The beautiful Finch Staff. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Finch Staff is pretty accurately described by its description. It just summons a baby finch to fight for you. This little boy does actually exactly what you would expect. He kind of just flies at enemies trying to hit them. The trouble is, his AI is horrible. I mean, just look at this. This is disgusting. He's just flying in circles around the target. Turns out, though, you could spawn the finches inside of your enemies, which does substantially more damage because they can't just tweak around like a meth head on crack and actually fight the target you're aiming at. Even then, though, they have a bad tendency to target the enemies farthest away from you on the screen. This one zombie at 2 health chased me halfway up a mountain before a single finch could even, bite its ankle. Bite its ankle? How do those guys fight? I don't know. Either way, with 3 of them, taking care of a zombie was pretty much a breeze, as their knockback single-handedly stun-locked them, even if I had to deal some pickaxe damage at the end. This is probably the best perk of having these little bird boys on my side. While I'm setting up this mini base here, I didn't have to worry about enemies at all, because they would completely get them on lock. Now that I made myself a, little underground hole, I figured it was about time I set my minion boost up to a more proportional number, and I started giving myself a couple more bird friends to join the pack. This time the vulture wasn't so much as a boss fight, as it was a quick time event. After all this time, I finally decided to get some good use out of my materials, and I made full copper armor and a platinum crown. Don't ask me why I made the platinum crown. I have never used it before, I just felt like it. At this point, I just went straight into building my arena. I know I was technically wearing the second worst armor set in the game and barely had any weapons, but the truth is, for the summoner class, you don't really have very many options for pre-hard mode. As a matter of fact, all the other armors that tend to boost certain stats or certain classes don't really have all that much of an impact on summoners, all things considered, especially since the birds only do 1 to 2 damage per hit against most enemies anyway, so a 15% damage boost effectively means nothing. Once I set up the arena, I just threw some campfires in there for extra life regeneration, and I decided to wait out the day by exploring more of the underground. I went back underground trying to find the Stormjaw staff, and at this point, I will reveal my hidden foreshadowing. The Stormjaw staff is a Calamity exclusive item. I had spent hours underground trying to grind out that staff. I did get a mandible sword out of it though, that's pretty cool. I made some more basic equipment and then I summoned an Eye of Cthulhu. Normally, this guy is fairly simple. All you have to really do in his first phase is dodge around. I thought his little eye things would give me some trouble, but they were actually fairly easy to take out with the Mandible Sword, even if I'm not a melee class. Other than that, his second phase, which is usually a lot harder because of his dashes, was completely nullified by my birds absolutely blasting him before he could even do anything. Skeletron, though, was a different story. He has extremely high defenses until you take out both his hands, but the birds don't really know what to target, so sometimes they'll latch onto a hand, sometimes the head, sometimes the other hand. They're very inconsistent at best and outright bad at tracking onto him at worst. I was also feeling a bit cocky for my fight with Eye of Cthulhu and tried to get in a lot more melee damage. Getting close to him did not go well. I figured I'd ask the guide for some help. He was about as helpful as the guide will ever be to any player, and I decided to go back to mining. My main issues with Skeletron were he was way too tanky. It would have taken me probably around 5 minutes or so to kill him just by running around and letting the birds do their business. But there was also the issue of my health being so low. I didn't really care so much for the armor as I'm a true Sigma male, and I know that copper is the greatest pre-Hardmode option. Instead, I focused on finding life hearts, which was difficult, to say the least. But after spending a lot more time caving, and just generally making my way through all the different underground biomes, I eventually stumbled upon some hearts. Other than that, I kept mining just for general chests, accessories, really anything I could find that could give me some more health. I found this cool crab statue. It's unrelated. I didn't even notice it until I was editing. I just felt like I should point that out. Otherwise, I opened this very obviously trapped chest because I was confident that I would be able to outrun the explosion. I was not. And I decided to fight King Slime. This was meant to be a kind of confidence boost before going into Skeletron a whole, you can do it, you just have to be smart, look how easy you could take this thing out. No! It was not fun. For the love of God, so many people have memed about King Slime being such an easy fight. He was so bulky. Hey, this is me in post-editing. I don't feel I got the message across, so just to give you an idea of how bad this fight was, in my notes for this episode, I just wrote down the word fear next to King Slime. Nothing else. Just fear. Okay, back to it then. Still, at the end of it, I got a cool-ass ninja hood and the slime press. I know damn well I'm never going to use this, but I placed it down anyway. After this, I made sure to count all of my birds before fighting Skeletron again to make sure I'm at maximum power. I had a full 18, but I was struggling to spawn in the last two for a bit because they would just kind of fly around my head, but eventually I got it. I spent a lot of time after that just kind of dicking around, trying to waste some time till night comes. I summoned in the zoologist because she actually sells a weapon called the Whip, which does summon damage and aids in targeting. For whatever reason, she didn't sell it, so I just kind of gave that up and summoned an Eater of Worlds. He didn't spawn in correctly and just immediately fell out of the worlds, but he died almost instantly as well from my birds, so it's kind of like a 50-50. We'll just call that one a tie. Skeletron insta-killed me 3 times, and it was only this late into the run that I realized the reason I was unable to spawn minions inconsistently was because I didn't have enough mana. Usually the cost is so low to summon in a minion, and you only do it like once or twice, so I didn't realize how quickly that adds up when you're trying to spawn 20 plus. I also switched over to the Hornet Staff, not because I necessarily needed to switch out the Finches. I was just thinking that the Hornet Staff never really gets its time to shine in these kind of Let's Plays, so I figured I'd show it some love, and it did fairly well, I'd say. It's quite underrated, considering the staff that most people get immediately after this, but it was fairly good in terms of contact damage, and the stingers they fired did poison as well, which was fairly alright in terms of debuff options. After that, I tried Brain of Cthulhu, just to round out the pre-Hardmode bosses before I went for Wall of Flesh. The little orb things that spawns were a lot of trouble on the Hornets, but after they plowed through them, the Cthulhu itself, not very tough. They actually managed to stun lock it, and it wouldn't even be able to move towards me without being stabbed by 80 stingers. I wasn't looking for anything specific from it, just kind of this cool little hoodie. Retrospectively, I probably should have put on the warding brain of Cthulu, but whatever. I went down the hell, which is not a sentence you'd hear in any other video, and I decided that rather than make a bridge throughout all of hell to fight Wall of Flesh, I do the true Sigma move and just use wings instead. The first Wall of Flesh fight was not fun. The bees did a good chunk of damage, in fact they got him around half health, but I could barely get close to him before his little grippers would come after me. And on top of that, I kept falling into a lot of fire, lava, and I felt like I would not be able to get close to him. Second time did not go much better. I immediately dashed into him, taking an insane amount of damage, retreated onto Hellstone, which set me on fire, got stuck in this little building here, which pushed me inside of him, and then I panic dashed into a lava pool. Yeah, God, you could say that again. It was about this time I busted out the ultimate weapon, the Imp Staff. You know it, you love it. Pretty much anyone who has played pre-Hardmode Terraria knows just how cool this weapon can be. I mean, look at this. They're making a little line. It's so cute. Jokes aside, the Imp Staff is one of the most used staffs in Terraria, purely because it's easily accessible and does pretty good damage regardless of what class you're in. The imps kind of just float behind you, usually not in this much of a line, but in somewhat of a line, and they simply fly towards targets that they're locked on and shoot little fireballs. These fireballs actually inflict the on fire debuff, which you think wouldn't work on the Wall of Flesh, considering, you know, he lives in hell, but for whatever reason, his little clingy thingies aren't, which actually makes them insane for shredding. On top of that, the most important thing about these guys is they're just good. They have a lot of damage per hit, and they fire quickly. So I wasn't as scared going into it this time. Tried to summon it in for a bit. I think my game glitched out for whatever reason, and the screen went black, but eventually I managed to get it in all the way at the world's edge. They absolutely melted his clingers. I did not have to worry about the Hungries getting anywhere near me, because these little dudes destroyed him. All I had to do was pretty much just stay somewhat close while I ran, and they took care of it for me. Granted, I may have ran my luck a little far, and this happened. But a win is a win, and the Ancient Spirits of Light and Dark being released means that I'm officially in hard mode. At this point I beat the challenge, but I figured just for the fun of it I'd show the one other staff and the one other boss I had yet to include in the video. The Slime Staff. Many players know about this Slime Staff for infamous reasons. It has a 0.001% drop from slimed zombies and regular slimes, with the best odds being from Pinky, a very rare slime in itself, that still only gives you a 1 in 100% chance. So how does this weapon do? Atrociously. Oh my god. I couldn't have picked a worse staff for Queen Slime, admittedly, considering the best the slime could do is just kind of hop around, and that doesn't really work against the flying boss, but oh my god. I got ripped to shreds. Still, I had made it into hard mode, and that was considered a win enough for me. So, if you liked this video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and for the love of God, check out my non-Terraria videos. I swear I put effort into them too. And with that being said, thanks for watching, have a good day, and I'll see you next time.